Committee 2119 and 2278, 2119 pseudoephedrines and ephedrine authorized sales and purchase of certain products containing without a prescription. Uh, we've tried this before, but I think uh, the bill, hopefully, it looks like it's fixed up this time, and we have the author of said bill here, uh, Senator Burlingame here. If he wants to make some remarks on it. We have a proposed committee sub here as well. All right, Mr. Chairman, if you wish to talk a little about your bill, you may do so at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it very much, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here in person today.
You bet.
Senate Bill 2119 is a bill, and I'll just kind of explain roughly what it does. As most of you know, a couple of years back, when the methamphetamine situation, the crystal meth situation had gotten really bad across the state and across the country, several states, including Mississippi, decided, and I was here when we did that, to pass a law saying that you must have a prescription to purchase pseudoephedrine. And so Sudafed, which is traditionally what you go to the pharmacy and get for sinus and allergies, and it's really the only thing that works for me, and I know a lot of people feel that way, had to at that point start receiving a prescription from a nurse practitioner, doctor, somebody like that in order to purchase. Now, I think all but 2 states since that period of time, some 10, 15 years ago, have now done away with that particular restriction requirement because of several reasons. First of all, I believe that there are new drugs that are more effective in the meth making process, I understand. And so therefore, we're sort of preventing something that's no longer even really being used by the drug manufacturers anymore. So what you're doing is you're sort of putting an extra burden on law-abiding citizens who would like to go to the pharmacy or drugstore and pick up a box of Sudafed, and you really can't do that, at least not the stuff that actually works. I think there's some off-market type stuff that doesn't work very well that you can get over the counter. But if you're really wanting to get the pseudoephedrine drug that actually does work pretty well for sinuses here in Mississippi, you still currently have to get a prescription. So what this bill attempts to do is to remove the requirement for a prescription. It still requires it to be behind the counter. So you do have to go up and ask the pharmacist or the person working the counter to get the Sudafed for you and purchase it. But you just don't have to go to the expense of paying for a doctor's visit or a nurse practitioner visit for the purposes of getting a prescription for pseudoephedrine or Sudafed. Now, I understand that the independent pharmacies have looked over this and met about it. They had a couple of suggestions, I guess, and I think Senator Sojourner maybe is working on an amendment for them that essentially does 2 things. I think it puts a 2-year repealer in this to make sure that there aren't any unintended consequences that occur, which, you've been here a long time, longer than I have, Senator Jordan. Sometimes with good intentions, we pass something and there's unintended consequences. So in those types of situations and in this committee substitute, there's a 2-year repealer proposed, just so that it comes back before you again in a couple of years to see if you made the right decision, should this committee choose to pass this, and see if there were any unintended consequences that need to be addressed. The second part of the amendment that the pharmacist had asked for is apparently there's a cough syrup with codeine in it, maybe. Is that right, Senator Sojourner? That some people they are seeing are starting to abuse that type of product as well for the drug effect that you can get by drinking a lot of this cough syrup with the codeine in it. And they would like for this to be on the same lines. You don't have to get a prescription, but it would be behind the counter. You'd have to ask for it. And in both of these situations, there's a computer system called an NPLEX system that our pharmacies have, and you would still be tracked on that. If you purchase the pseudoephedrine or the cough syrup listed in here, you're still going to be tracked. And so that if you try to drug shop, you go from pharmacy A to pharmacy B to pharmacy C to just try to buy a whole bunch of this stuff, then you would still, the authorities would be alerted, and you would still have to face some questions from the authorities about why do you need 3 months worth of Sudafed in one day. So there is the tracking system, and that's free to the pharmacies. They have this in their shops already, so it's not an additional cost, I understand. So that is a brief explanation, Chairman Jordan, of the bill committee substitute as it's composed before you.
Okay, now they can only purchase 3.6 grams per period, and a total of 3.6 and a total of 7.2.
That is correct. On line 16 and 17
Yeah.
of the proposed committee substitute, there is a maximum that you can still buy, even though you can buy it without a prescription. You would be capped at 3.6 grams per day, or not more than 7 2/10 grams per month
Okay,
for purchases.
perfect. Okay, so that keeps it under some control. Are there any questions from the committee on this bill? Madam Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify with legal, because I think that the counselor for the independent pharmacies had come to you. And so the repealers in, the 2-year repealers in, and then the language for regarding the cough start, well, the same, treating it the same, that you have to be signed. I just wanted to make sure do you know what line that's on?
Subsection 8
Okay,
is the repealer, line 111 of the proposed committee sub.
Okay. perfect.
And then the language that pertains to the cough syrup was added on line 35, 36.
Okay.
The subsection 2, and that's the reference to 21
Got
CFR
it.
1306.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 3.6 grams, how many doses of legal use would that equate to in the 7.2 respectively?
That is a great question, Senator Williams, and I asked about that, and of course, it depends, I think, on the age and maybe even the size of the person, but the 3.6 grams per day, I think, is intended to equate to what someone, if they were taking this current prescription drug for the typical usage for allergies, it's what they would need in a given day, like an adult type dose. And then the same for the 30-day period for if you're taking it, for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And that's what the other states that have adopted the system have come up with. And I even asked the proponents, do we need to adjust it up or down, or what was their thought and thinking? And they said this is sort of the generally accepted practice across the country for states that were prescription only that then went to the non-prescription but behind the counter. So we're just sort of following what the other states have been using, and it seems to be working there.
So with few, if any exceptions, it should hit the norm.
Yes, sir.
One last question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The cough syrup you're talking about taking and putting behind the counter, how many products will that have the codeine in it? I guess that's going to be the marker that says take it behind the counter. Do you know that?
My understanding is it's just one product right now. If others do knockoffs of it, I guess there possibly could be others, but one that's being commonly and popularly used across the country for people that would abuse that.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No
Yes, sir. Yes. Come in. Come in. We are on the committee substitute on pseudoephedrine and ephedrine. So any other questions? Anyone else have any question? I know you just came in. We're looking at the committee sub.
Yes, sir. I'll have a couple of questions.
19. Carry on.
I'm assuming this is the same bill we passed out of here last year, right?
I believe so. I think it's been straightened out. It was double referred and it died for some reason or another. Once it left, it passed this committee,
Yes, sir.
but it somehow along the way it didn't make it.
Yes, sir. I think Judge B held it up last year, if I'm not mistaken. So that's all the questions I've got if it's the same bill, and I would like to speak on it given the opportunity as well.
Okay, carry on.
Had to let me catch my breath just for a moment, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. 4 flights of stairs ate me up.
You're right.
You know, a few years ago, we were one of the first states to experiment
Mhm.
with this approach. we followed Oregon's lead. And since that time, no other state has adopted this approach. That's a pretty compelling argument that perhaps we should not have adopted this approach.
I thought that was Oregon or in another state.
No, Oregon was the only other one.
Only other-
Oregon was first.
Okay.
And what we've seen since then is all the promises that were made during the debate have not come to fruition. Instead, we've basically, what's the right word for this? Tens of thousands of Mississippians have not been given the opportunity to treat something as simple as a nasal congestion. In the meantime, our Medicaid expenses have increased because of that as well. I think this is a common sense approach, and I think this is a really good bill, and I appreciate you very much bringing this before us today.
Let's pray that it does live after it leaves here.
Sir?
It's double referred. Let's pray that it does live after it leaves this committee.
Well, I happen to know the chairman of Judd B., and he's a really nice person.
Well, I can't debate that. But we appreciate your remarks in reference to it at this point. And I thought I was a little disappointed last year that the bill died. I thought it was a good bill then. So we're trying, this is round 2 with it, and we'll amend it. That was a committee substitute, and I think we'll pretty well fix all of the things that the next committee. In fact, I've talked to somebody from it. They're pretty sure we'll make it this time. Okay, any other question? If not, Chair, entertain a motion.
Title special to pass.
Title special to pass. All in favor of the motion, let me know by committee sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Thank you very much. Here we go again with that one. Okay, good. Let's look at, we have one more bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you. You bet. We have another bill, 2278, bill that I've met with some of the health department people. This has already been approved by the federal level, so we just get it so it can be adopted on the state level. And so this is just a matter of routine so that the health departments can use these chemicals that have been adopted by on the federal level. So that's what this bill does. It includes all of these names. I have a son who's a pharmacy and a grandson who's a pharmacy, son who's a pulmonologist. And after he had to come up with some of these pronunciations, so we'll go through them as you want us to. Fluoroprozolan, and that one, and we go on all the way through them. And I think it's about 8 of them. So they will be added to number 1, to table 1. Because actually in table 1, these drugs must be placed up because they're too dangerous to be placed somewhere else. So they would go in table 1 of our chart. So they asked to be included. 8 of them. Says to include isonitro, tarzine, I believe. Tarzine, yeah, isonitrotarzine and fluoroprozolan. And we go all the way down to fluoroprozolan, then fluoroprozolan, isotretinoin, chloranazolam, all of these different ones. They're kind of new. They weren't in the chemistry book when I had it. These are all new substances. So they added bricks along and sort of amphetamine, and all of these would be added to table or schedule 1 in the drug policy scale. Any questions about this bill? So it's just a matter of following federal regulation, what it does. That's all it does. It just changes so that we can follow federal regulation on it. And this so that our health departments can function under this. Any questions? If not, Chair, entertain a motion. I so moved then. Adopted. Second, all in favor, let it be known by me, sign aye. Aye. Opposes by the same sign. Okay, good. That's it, I get the green one. Driving report, thank you. There are two more bills. We may get a chance to get around to them. We may try them before too. But thank you for getting these two out.